This is What If Naruto was in High School of the Dead. And before we start, this is a story made by Nuke Fox 19, and I'm just reading it for you guys to listen to. Alright, let's just start this. Chapter 1, Dying World. Down in a dark alley lied an unconscious blonde man. He looked to be in his teens, mostly around 17. He has long, spiky blonde hair that slightly covered his eyes. He has 3 whisker marks on each cheeks. He wore an orange and black jacket, while he was unzipped to show that he wore a black shirt underneath it. He also wore an orange pants and black sandals. The blonde's eyes opened to reveal that they were purple colored and that they had a ripple-like pattern. The man sat up and looked around to see blood everywhere, along with dead bodies lying around. Getting back up to his feet, he looked around once again. His eyes were narrowed to show that his face showed a bored expression. Where the hell am I? The blonde thought. He walked out of the alley to see several vehicles crash on fire. Looking to his left, he saw a school board that said Fujimi Academy. He saw that the gates were forced open and his curiosity got the best of him. He walked towards the school. A group of people, 2 males, 4 females, were running around the halls throughout the school. One of the students was carrying a metal bat. The student's a boy at the age of 17 with an average height and build. He has brown eyes, spiky black hair, and he wore the black school uniform with a red t-shirt underneath. His name's Takashi Komaru. Another student was carrying a wooden sword. Her name Seiko Busojima, age 18. She has long, straight purple hair with triangular fringe at the front that barely touch the ridge of her nose. She also had blue eyes. Her lips were shiny and pink like sakura blossoms. The next girl was carrying a mop handle. She has long, light brownish hair with bangs and 2 strands sticking out above the rest of her hair. She had reddish eyes with a slender figure with ample breast. Her name's Rei Miyamoto, age 17. The third girl has long spiky hair, which she mostly kept in 2 ponytails on either of her head. Her hair also has 2 thin, long bangs at the sides, 2 thin strands of hair over the left side of her forehead, and a spiky, larger portion of her hair covering the left side of her forehead. She has fierce, orange eyes and furrowed brows. Her name's Saya Takagi, age 16. Next was the only adult of the group, a tall blonde woman that was carrying a bag full of medical supplies, with waist hair and hazel eyes, with ridiculous curves. She was wearing a white dress shirt, brown skirt that was ripped at the sides. Her name's Shizuka Marikawa, age 27. The last one of the group was carrying a nail gun. He was slightly short and a chubby boy, with shoulder-length dark hair and bangs reaching down from the side of his temples, stretching outwards and obscuring the sides of his face. And of course, he was wearing a standard male student uniform of his school. His name's Kota Hirano, age 16. They all came at a stop and got up against the wall. Takashi peeked around the corner to see a small group of dead just roaming around. He turned back to the group and whispered, "Okay, I'm going to throw something that'll draw their attention so that we can get out of here." He looked at the nurse. "You have the keys, right?" The busty nurse nodded. "Okay." Takashi whispered as he picked up a shoe that was lying nearby and threw it from where they came from, which ended up hitting a locker. The dead all picked up the sound and walked towards the source of the sound. Takashi beckoned the group as they all ran out the doors. Once they all got outside, they all came to the sudden halt and froze as they could not believe what they were seeing. A whole parking lot was flooded with several of them. Takashi shook off. We need to get that bus. The bus he referred to was not far from them, but it was blocked by a lot of them. Come on, Takashi shouted, as he and the others all ran to the bus. Takashi, Seiko, and Ray managed to make a path, knocking any that stood in their way. Kota, on the other hand, was smiling like a madman while he shot any of them from a distance. It wasn't long until they made it to the bus. Miss Shizuka, the keys, Takashi called. Right, she replied, as she opened the door and got it, along with the others except for Takashi and Seiko. The two decided to stay out to buy some time for the nurse to get everything ready. Takashi kicked one of the dead back and swung another one against the head. He spun around to face one who clicked and swung the bat down on top of his head. The bus pulled on, which gave them the word that they were ready to get out of there. Takashi, they're ready, let's go, Seiko said, as she whacked her wooden sword across the head of one of them. You go, ladies first, he said. Seiko smiled slightly and quickly got on the bus, followed by Takashi. Wait for us. Takashi looked out the door to see a group of people running towards them. Who's that? Takashi asked. That's Mr. Shido, the teacher of class 3A, Seiko answered. Ray's eyes widened. Shido said quietly, we can go now, Shizuka announced. Wait just a bit longer, Takashi replied. Ray quickly looked at Takashi. They're in front of us anymore and we won't be able to drive through here, Shizuka said. Just run them down, Takashi stated. Saya folded her arms across her chest if any more crowd around in front of the bus, and we were to run them over, it might just flip the bus, Saya mentioned. Takashi gritted his teeth and made his way to the exit. However, Ray quickly grabbed his arm. We don't have to save him, she said. Takashi stepped out and looked at Ray. Jesus, what do you mean we don't have to save him? We don't have to help him. He deserves to die, Ray shouted. They're alive and no one deserves to die. Takashi barked back and turned back around to look outside. However, he looked at a different area and saw a blonde boy around his face. Who's that? Everyone looked at Takashi was looking at. I don't know. I haven't seen anyone wearing the clothes like those around the school, Seiko answered. The blonde watched the group of people run to the bus. He realized that two of them were behind. One, which looked like leader, who was standing and looking down at an injured student. Then the leader of the group kicked at the student's face and left him. As he made his way to the bus, the blonde kept the same bored look in his face. As he looked at the student that was left behind and saw that a few of the dead were closing in on him, he slid a metal rod around his jacket sleeve and instantly vanished. The people at the bus were completely shocked. What the hell? Takashi asked. No one had a clue to say. Let's go. We need to get out of here, Shida called out. Takashi shook his head. Not yet. They looked at the defenseless student, but they saw the blonde appear right next to his side. The blonde gritted his teeth and he hefted the boy up along his shoulders. He could literally smell the breath rolling off the dead students. At the close of a distance, the dead lunged at the blonde, but he ended up stabbing the rod through the head of one. The others grabbed onto the blonde. Shinra Tensei, he muttered quietly. Only the boy on his shoulders would have effectively heard it. It was then the 6 creatures that had come to surround the two were visually blown back. This wasn't the please move from the doorway, Shinra Tensei, as he called it, such as one he used earlier against the abomination in the school. This was a full-fledged, bone-crushing, organ-melting, forceful push that was used for combat. The creatures rocketed off in all directions. The amount of force shown to all the onlookers as over in the bus. One of the monsters had propelled right onto the school. One of them ended up slamming hard against the constructed walls, impacting with enough force to make an actual crater in it. Another creature blew off in another direction, rocketing out a fence before springboarding face first, crashing into the cement. What on earth was that? Ray asked. Shido and his group, the witness of what happened, and even Shido himself was lost for words. They all kept their eyes on the blonde, but then he vanished once again and ended up reappearing before their eyes. The blonde stood outside the bus while Takashi glee helped the injured student in the bus. He sat him down in the seat behind Shizuka and looked down to see the blonde just standing there. Get in. The blonde looked behind him to see several of them coming and decided to get in the bus. Once he stepped in, the door shut, while Shizuka stared at the blonde in front of them. They're not human anymore, she said to herself and finally pushed down on the pedal. As she began to run them over, Naruto stood in front of the bus and looked at everyone. But then his eyes came to stop on the man that tried to kill one of the students. He walked towards him slowly, while Takashi and his group, except for Shizuka, along with the injured student that was saved by the blonde, watched him. Shiro sat in his seat and had fear showing in his eyes. The blonde continued to make his way to him, but then a student from another group got up from his seat and stood in front of the blonde. This student has not blonde, but brown and yellow hair. Wears the male Fujimi high school uniform, and unlike the other students, he wears slippers instead of regular shoes. Under his uniform, he wears a blue high-collar sweater that was unbuttoned slightly. His name, Tsunoda, age 17. Go sit down, he yelled. The blonde, as usual, kept a bored look on his face and didn't say a word. I said, go sit. The blonde grabbed the student by his face and lifted him up off his feet. As he looked at him, some of the people gasped and were completely surprised about the boy's strength. But the way he simply lifted up Tsunoda up with one hand by the face was not normal by any other student. He didn't say anything, and instead, he simply tossed him back to his seat and walked up to Shido. The teacher was starting to shake in fear as the blonde stepped right next to him. He looked closely at him to realize how long his hair was. He managed to cover his eyes slightly. However, Shido managed to see his strange eyes. Who are you? And what are you? He stuttered. The blonde grabbed the collar of the teacher's shirt and lifted him up off his seat. Shido grabbed a hold of the blonde's wrist and struggled to get free, but the blonde's grasp was too strong. If you ever try to leave anyone behind again, I'll kill you, the blonde stated. Shido wide-eyed but was placed back in his seat roughly. The blonde turned back to see that all his eyes, except Shizuka's, were on him. My name's Naruto Namikaze. That's all you need to know, the blonde said. As he walked back to the front of the bus, he sat down next to the student he saved. Shido saw that all eyes were on him now. Everyone, even his own group, was disgusted with him leaving a poor student behind. Shido's group consisted of 9 people, 6 males and 3 females. Tsunoda, Shido himself, and Kaji as well. But who knows if Kaji wants anything to do with him anymore. Kawamoto, age 16, is one of the girls from Shido's group. She's a redhead girl with golden brown eyes. She has only been seen wearing the female uniform of Fujimi Academy. Under her uniform, she wore a pink tank top. Tanuichi, age 16, is another girl from Shido's group. She has magenta colored hair and blue eyes covered by a pair of glasses. She has always been seen wearing the female sailor uniform of Fujimi Academy. Mu Miura, I think, age 17, is a male student from Shiro's group. She has messy brown hair and as well as eyes of the same color. Under his Gakuran jacket, he wears a red-orange shirt. Yamada, age 18, wears a long white-sleeved shirt. He has short black hair and light brown eyes. Kurokami, age 16, has long black hair that grows over his eyes. He does not wear the black uniform jacket over a long sleeved white shirt. Unlike most students with these shirts, he wears his untucked. Yuki Miku, age 18, has long has I mean has short light orange hair and uses a hairband to keep her hair back. She also wears the female uniform of Fujimi Academy. She was known to be the sexiest student throughout the school. Naruto grabbed the medical bag that was sitting on the ground and opened it. "What's your name?" Naruto asked. The boy replied with a stiff lip. "Kaji Saito," he answered with a deal of pain. Seiko was sitting on the opposite side of the bus from Naruto, and a couple seats back. She watched him and admired his work. "Bosojima-san, I'm assuming you're the leader of the group." Seiko turned around and looked up to see Shiro asking her. She also noticed that Shiro was keeping a close eye on Naruto at the same time. "No, we're just work together." "That's no good. Every group needs a leader in order to survive," he replied. Ray tightly grabbed Takashi's arm and glared at him. "You'll regret saving him," she whispered. "It's like I said, it's only going to be dangerous if we keep going. What if we run out of gas in the middle of nowhere? What are we going to do then?" "Why don't we find a safe place?" Tsunoda shouted as he stood in the aisle. Kurokami nodded. "I agree with Tsunoda. We just need to find a safe place with food and drinks to keep us alive for a few days and barricade ourselves inside." The bus came to a screeching halt. It nearly threw Tsunoda off his feet, but he held on to his chair to hold his ground. "That's enough. I can't focus on driving with all this commotion," Shizuka shouted. "Yeah, whatever," Tsunoda nodded. Naruto examined the two hair-colored teen and saw that this guy was on the verge of a mental breakdown. "Tell me, what is it that you want to do then?" Seiko asked the teen. Tsunoda gritted his teeth. "I just can't." He then pointed at Komodo. "I just can't stand him." Komodo got out of his seat. "What did I ever do or say to you?" Tsunoda lost it. "You bastard." He charged at the teen. The scene before the bond started to remind him of an old friend of his. However, it was over when Ray got up and hit him hard in the stomach and with a mopped handle. "A-hole," she muttered. Clapping drew everyone's attention as they all saw Mr. Shuido now standing. "Bravo," he began. That was outstanding teamwork, Komodo-kun and Miyamoto-san. However, at any rate, a conflict such as this serves to prove my point." He grinned as he leaned forward to the two shorter teens. "We need a leader." "Oh, so we've only got one nominee?" Saya asked. The teacher looked at the young girl. "I'm a teacher, Miss Takagi, and you are all my students." Shiro looked at Naruto and at the nurse. "Except for you, you're a nurse, and him," he said. "So that alone makes it very clear who's more qualified. I'll make sure we'll all survive." Naruto gave the man some props since he did have some deal of charisma. However, he knew that this man was dangerous. He knew that if it came down to a situation similar to him and Kaji back at the school, that he would kill whoever was in his way. Shiro's group stood up and clapped at his pointless speech. I suppose that it's decided that I'm the leader from now on by majority vote. Ray was just about to get up and leave, but before she did it, she watched as Naruto got up. The blonde held his arm up in front. Buncho tinning, he whispered. As Shiro came flying towards the blonde, everyone went wide-eyed, seeing more of the blonde. Naruto caught him by the neck and slid another metal rod up from his sleeve. If anyone should be the leader here, it's defiantly not going to be you, he said in a cold tone. Shiro struggled once again in the blonde's grasp. Seeing that Naruto got his statement through, he thought that was enough and simply tossed him back to the back of the bus. Seiko for once showed the slightest of fear in her eyes. Just what is he? Where did he come from? Takashi began to wonder. Kota, on the other hand, was in fact smiling. He's like some badass from some manga. I want Naruto as my leader, Kaji announced. The blonde looked at the student he had saved. I also want Naruto as our leader, Kota said. Before anyone else could say anything, Naruto shook his head. I'm afraid I cannot lead you all. Kota stood up. Why not? Naruto couldn't come up with an answer, and he didn't want to tell them exactly. I vote for him, the blonde pointed at Takashi. Hey, why don't you want to be the leader? Saya asked. Yeah, the way you saved Kaji and how you easily took care of those dead students. You should take up the position, Takashi asked. Komaru's right, Seiko mentioned. Naruto just stood there while everyone started to say things about him and how he fits to be the leader. It was too much for him. As his head started to ache, he placed a hand on his head. As his head began to get worse due to his memories of him being back in his world came to him. So, who's going to lead our group? Ambushing Kabuto isn't going to be easy, Sai said. Tsunade sat at her desk as she looked at Sai, Sakura, and Kiba. I have already decided who's going to lead. Right when she said that, the door opened to show Naruto wearing an Anbu outfit. Naruto? Why didn't I think of this sooner? Asked Kiba himself. Naruto here will lead you, but please do remember, you four are to capture Kabuto alive and bring him back so we can get more information about Madara out of him. This is an S-ranked mission. Yes, Lady Hokage, Kiba and Sai said. Naruto was smiling. This is what I've been waiting for. Missions like these to sneak in and capture the enemy. He smiled sheepishly. While Sakura punched the top of his head, the blonde squat down and rubbed his head. Baka, this is nothing to be joking about. Sakura, why do you always have to hit my head? He whined. Naruto fell to one knee, which everyone from Takashi's group got to their feet and rushed to him. Naruto-san, are you okay? Seiko asked. The blonde showed no sign of answering and shortly went unconscious. We need to find a place for him to rest, Takashi mentioned. Oh, we can go to my friend's home. It's not far from here, Shizuka mentioned. Okay, then can you take us there? Takashi asked. Shizuka nodded and got back into the driver's seat, as did everyone else, while Seiko grabbed the unconscious blonde and pulled him with her to a seat. She sat next to the window and placed his head on her lap, even though his legs bent down to the side of the chair and rested to the aisle. She looked down at his face and looked closely at the whisker marks. You're obviously hiding something from us, Naruto-san. Shiro looked down the bus at Seiko's position. Hey boss, he's out cold, Shinoda whispered as he took a seat next to him. Yes, I know. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yes. When we get to Mrs. Marikawa's friend's home, we will kill him when he's resting. Alright everyone, that's the end of chapter 1. I'll be posting the next chapter this tomorrow no like goals or anything like that. But chapter 2 might have a like goal. And also, shout out to Quad X. I like his what ifs a lot, especially the what if Naruto was in high school DxD and what if Naruto wasn't dumb. Alright, that's all I had to say. Bye.
Shinra Tensei.